Hey, welcome back. Or maybe it's welcome back to me. It's been a while, a long while. I spent most of the winter on the shop. Still not finished, but it's way better. Tell my background's a little different. It's going to be a little different. This is actually going to get rolled back. This is a workbench, back of a workbench. You'll probably see this in a different video. I don't know if it'll be before or after this one, but basically I put insulation and ceiling and got all the walls done, and that used to be 2x4 walls, and back behind that I got to put doors there and there, but I just got a sheet up right now because I mopped all of those. But I've got all the walls up. I'm only lacking a little bit across the top above the garage door and the walk-through door. Anyway, got a special box open today. So we're just going to start in with an unboxing. So I got this from Sefaspe, I don't know how you pronounce it. I'll put the wording here. They sent me a welder to review in the past, and it was strictly a stick welder. And I'll blink the video up here in the corner. It only weighed 4 pounds, real small. But this one here is supposed to do a little bit more. It's supposed to be, I think, MIG and TIG. I mean, MIG and stick. And it doesn't come with the TIG, but it does lift TIG. But we're going to unbox it and see what all it can do. It's probably going to be a box in a box. All right. Got a lot of space in there. All right. Get rid of that box. Okay. Sefaspe, it's a MIG135E. So let's open this up, see what we got. So here's the stick. Well, it's got the ground and the stinger in here. Just a little ground and the stinger for the stick welding. Here's the MIG gun. Everything's in Chinese, so I can't tell if this is it says 8 millimeters, so I don't know if that, or 0.8 millimeters. So I don't know if that's, I can't remember if that's 25 or 30. Maybe I'll do a Google search real quick. Be right back. So it looks like 0.8 millimeters is equivalent to, it says 0.314 inches. So I'm just thinking it's 30. But it is supposed to be flux core. Yeah, it says that. That's the only English on there. It says self-shoulder flux core. But good enough for me. Let's see. They throw in one of these little chipping hammers. It's got a little metal tip on there and little wire brushes, but I never use those. The bigger versions of them. That is small. That is tiny. Oh, and it's 110 only. And that's a little bit the instructions. Paperwork. They throw in a quick start guide and a user manual. Okay, let's see. On the back we got the on-off switch. About it. On the front, that light there, it's got a lightning bolt looking thing and a temperature, so I'm sure that's the thermal limiter comes on if you overuse it. And then you get your MMA Lift TIG switch or MIG. You flip it up or down, depending on what you're doing. Then your typical hookups. Little digital readout, min, max, pretty simple. All right. Got my welding helmet, give me some gloves. All right. I have it plugged up. I think I'm gonna do the stick welding, MMA, whatever you want to call it first. So we will take the ground clamp or earth clamp, depending on what country you're from. And so I don't know if you can see it or not. This is negative, this is positive, this is the control for the MIG gun. So I'll put it grounded to negative. I gotta set it down, lock it in. There it goes. All right. Hook it onto this. Try to get it out of the way of everything. Okay. And I'm going to hook this into the positive. So. And call it the work, stinger, electrode, whatever you want to call it. I call it a stinger. That's just how I've always called it. I got two 70/18s. These are all 3/32 rods. Two 60/11s. Now these rods are like my go-to for all welding in the shop. I mean, as far as 60/11, 70/18s. I use 70/18s on clean metal or MIG, and I use 60/11 on dirtier metal. I've got other ones, but now I've got some 60/13s here. We'll see how they work. And I'm gonna flip that power on. And we have power. Now I'm gonna run this up. What does it go up to? 136. Lowest is 24, highest is 136. So now I'm gonna do this around, that's a little warm, but I'm gonna do it around 80. Just to start out with, see what it does. And then we'll go from there. And especially with stick welding and all that, I would recommend a respirator, but I'll be talking, so I won't have one on. And I'm not going to be welding a whole lot, so it'll be alright. Alright. Let's try 60/11 first. Let's see how it burns. Ground right to the piece. Under too hot, which I knew it was, but I can't get it to run a bead. The 60/11. Let me try the 60/13s. That was a 70. It was a little too cold, I think. At least it run these 60/13s. Let's try it now. See, you can see how it's built up too high. That's usually because I got the setting too cold. We'll try 80. That was 70. We'll try 80 with the 60/13. I'm going to crank it up to 88 just to try that. It's still running too cold, I think. Maybe I'll try 90. Oops. Run better for a while, but thing dropped down to 89. But it definitely ran better at well, I had it at 90. Okay, stay at 90. Definitely ran better at 90 than it did at 80, that's for sure. And this is a pretty thick piece of steel, so it's heating up some now, which helps too. I'm going to try a 7018. I'm not sure how well that'll work. I think I'll run that one up I'm going to try it in 100. And one more pass with 7018 at 100. That seems to run really good. This is 3/32 7018s at 100. Alright, I came out pretty good. Okay, so this row 7018, 718, 3/32 at 718s at 100, and then these were the 6013s. I overlapped the 16013 here. There's two rows of 6013 here, and they ran pretty good at around 90. They were 3/32. But now the 7018, which is one I usually run all the time, 7018s, when I'm welding with stick, is you can see the toes look pretty good along the edges. I was a little shaky just getting started, and I haven't welded in quite a while, so I'm a little shaky on that. But it came out pretty good, flowed pretty good, and I kept my welding rod in the puddle, pushed into the puddle most of the time, so I had good penetration. And it was working out really, really good for us that went. It did, hesitate a few times, but I don't know if that was just me shaking or if that was the machine, but it's hard to say. So I'd have to weld quite a bit with it to know, but right now it's not doing too bad. So I'm glad the 7018 worked out well. That's my go-to rod. And the 6011s, I could not get the 6011 to weld very well for some reason. Might have been my settings, because the 6013 welded fine. And you know, once I got the heat right, and then the 7018s on a lot of my welders, I usually set it just a little bit colder than this one. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you get this, you may have to, you know, play with it a little bit. Of course, you always want to practice with any machine. Even if you had one for a while, you need to practice just for your own sake, but also to learn the machine. Every machine, I don't care if you get Lincoln, a Miller, Sefaspe, however you say that, or just any of them. I don't care what you get. They're going to run just a tad bit different. So I'm going to switch things around, and we'll show you how to hook this up for Flux core, and then we'll give that a try. So this off, powered off, everything's off. I'm going to disconnect the ground or earth, like I said, wherever you're from. And then I'm going to take the stinger off and set that to the side because we don't need that now. Okay, so we got a tip in here, plus there's an extra tip in. They give you this little wrench, change the parts out. And in this bag, they give you a tip, it's a 0.9. This tip in with the wrench is a 1.0. Let's see what's in the gun, if there is one. And in the gun is a 0.8. So you got a 0.8, a 0.9, and a 1.0 given to you. Since that's already there, we don't have to do anything. Now you don't need the, see, this has got a gas nozzles, I guess, it's coming out of it, but it just presses on. Of course, you don't need that with flux core because there's no gas, obviously. Stating the obvious, ain't I? All right. So let's set all this to the side. We don't need the tools or anything. Pull up on that little handle. Let's add the wire to it. If you're going to do a lot of MIG welding, get you a set of, you know, MIG pliers. You can get them most any place. Get your brush. Chip and hammer is only really, well, you'll need it for flux core, so you need the chip and hammer for flux core. I was using this one too, but it's real lightweight. I prefer the heavier weight, so that's just me. But that would work in a pinch. All right, hopefully you can see that in the dark. This is a knob, and it says off and on, but what you're going to do is you're going to push in, and it's like a cam thing. You push in, you unlock it. You can see those, I don't know if you can see those little tabs in there or not. But pull that out, and then you have to pull this part off here, like washer. We'll set that there. And then you want this to feed so that it goes in fairly straight. And so you don't want it to come off the top like this, because then it's got to come down, go in, and be pulling. So you want it to come off the bottom so it's pretty much a straight deal. So you're going to put it in like so. Take your wire. And then we're going to twist that down, flip that up. And then this little metal sleeve, we'll feed that through there. There it went. And it'll hold my mouth right. All right. You want to go into that. So it's in that groove there. Need to put some tension on this. So I'm going to put that washer back on. Hope you can see all this. Now put this spring toward it, push it in, and twist it to lock. So that's done. There's a groove down here in the bottom. So you want it to come out, you want it to go through here, come out, goes through into there, and this, you can see these two grooves here. Normally you could take this off, and then you'd have probably an 8 and then a 9 or something like that. Maybe it's 8, 9, and a 1. Usually one groove is bigger than the other, and you can flip that disc back and forth to whatever wire you're running. I'm just going to leave it because I didn't check it, but it looks like it's about that size. That one back in the back looks bigger. So you pull this down, and that gives it tension. You lift up on the handle and lock it in place, and then pull it down. You just want enough tension that it drives it, but not so much that it'll kink or something. You'd rather if it gets in a bind, you'd rather have it slip. All right, so everything's in there. Now, let's set up the outside piece here. The MIG gun, you're gonna put it into the negative one and twist and lock it tight. And then you have this prong that's got a little notch on it. Line the notch up to the bottom. And just thread this plastic nut on. And then your ground or earth goes into the positive. All right, there we go. Now this is the part I do with MIG guns, is I don't care for, I don't want to try to come up through here and hopefully have that tip hit this. So what I'll do is I'll run it, some of the wire comes out, then I'll feed it on and tighten it back down. Just the way I do it. You can probably go through there and hopefully it won't hit, it'll, probably can't see it in there, but it's got a taper inside there so that it'll direct it in. But so we're gonna go MIG. Like I said, you push the top one, it's MMA and Lift TIG. We'll switch over to MIG, power it on. So I'm gonna hit the torch, and you probably see it here, it's spinning. So it starts off slow, and then as you hold it, it starts speeding up. And we're just waiting for it to come out the tip. I can feel it going through the stuff here. I can feel it coming up to the handle, and there it is. So all that worked well. I then feed my tip over that. See, that's kind of stiff. That's why I don't like putting them on. I like run the wire through while the tip is on. I know it comes with a tool, but I got these pliers, so I'm going to use them. Alright. Push this back on. And we'll put this where you can see. We're going to run some passes now with this here. Hook this earth back up. Alright, we'll just leave it at 100, give it a try there. That's the thing about Flux core, it has a lot of splatter. Let me get you in close so you can see this weld. So this was a 7018. This is the MIG wire here. You can see all the splatter, but that's just normal Flux core stuff. But it welded really good. I was just doing little circular motions with it, but it ran pretty smooth. I don't see any undercuts. It doesn't look really overly built up, running kind of flat. Maybe I'll run a couple more passes. I'm going to take my phone and put it in my helmet. Maybe I can get it so you can see exactly how it looks through a helmet. So don't expect a whole lot here. This is kind of tough to do because I'm looking, I put my phone in my helmet and then I look through the screen on my phone, which is just a little tad bit of a delay. Here we go through the helmet. So this here was my last one I just did. And I was just doing little C's. I was going back and forth. But like I said, it seems to be getting pretty good penetration. I'd have to do a cut and edge test and all that, but I'm just not set up for that right now. Power this off. Takes it a while, fan's cooling it down. I have to turn it off and then it'll go off here in a minute. There you go. As far as welding goes, first little bit I had it too cold, but once I got it dialed in, kind of my final thoughts on this. And I told them when they wanted to send me this, I would only give them, you know, I'm not going to lie or anything just because they sent me something. Full disclosure, they sent this to free just for me to do a video about. And so that's fine. I am going into this as you know, the homeowner, farmer, occasional welding stuff. If you need a welder, not, you know, professional welding job, anything like that. So this is my opinion, my honest opinion on this. It welds really well. I like that it welds the 6013. I wish it did a little better on 6011, but 6013 is fine. But I mainly like that it runs 7018s. That's huge for me, and so that's one thing I do like is it runs 7018 and 6013 stick weld. You know, practice and get your settings right. I had to run a little hotter than I was used to, but once I got it set right, it started welding and flowing pretty good. And you get a good feel for it, of course. Just run beads. When you get it, just run beads. I just ran those few rods and that's a little bit of the MIG wire. I'll have to look to see what the duty cycle is and try to put it here if I can find one. A lot of these are like a 60% duty cycle or something. But it runs off 110, so it'd be great in somebody's garage or barn or shop, and they needed to, you know, do some welding. You don't have to mess with gas. You don't have to mess with anything. The wire feed, I would just leave it hooked up to wire feed. That's my opinion. I would leave it hooked up to the flux core. If you, if you don't want to use the 30 with the 0.8 millimeter stuff, then maybe get some 35 and whatever that is. I don't know if that's 0.9 or 1.0. I don't know. But go up in your heat, and you can weld thicker metal. You know, okay with that. I was welding this on, that's probably 3/8 thick plate, and it welded pretty good on it. It started out cold, of course, up front, but once the metal heated up, it did a little bit better. So you kind of take that into consideration. But yeah, I'd recommend this for anybody that just need to weld. Simple stuff on a farm, in a garage. You know, your hobbyist welder, any of that's fine. And the thing about it is, get your good helmet. Don't skimp on the helmets. It's your eyes there. Get some PPE stuff. Get yourself a respirator. Especially that flux core. Any flux core will do that. But that flux core and the stick welding both puts off a lot of gas. And it's smoky in here. I don't know if it's coming across in the video, but it's real smoky in here right now. I need to air this place out. Normally I would have my respirator on, but then I can't talk. So sacrificing for your benefit. Anyway, but yeah, I breathed a lot of welding smoke over the past 35, 40 years of welding. So just, you know, keep that in mind that it is good. It's 110 only. You'll probably just use it for stick or the wire feed. I would recommend, you know, especially if you just want something simple, if you're new at welding and you're wanting to learn welding, this is a cheap way to do it. You can get this, get in your garage, get you some steel from you know, either you can go to a supply place like Tractor Supply or something. They sell pieces of steel and cut it, or just go to a scrap yard, you know, find scrap pieces of steel, and then just start laying welds down. I mean, waste a lot of wire, waste a lot of welding rods. Just run beads, overlap your beads. I was running a little separate so I could kind of see them separate. But if I was practicing, I'd run a bead, then I'd run another bead right next to it, right in the edge of that one, so it's getting half on the bead, half off, and I'd just run that continuously up a piece of steel. And then I'd come back, let it cool every now and then because it gets way too hot. But then I'd come back and I'd either start again on top of those, or I'd start going the other direction on top of them. And you can build up you can turn a 1/4 inch plate into, you know, 1/2 inch or something just from welding rods. But you need that practice. And that would help you, one, figure out how the machine works, the settings, give you a little more comfort feeling. So when you do have to weld something that's important and you want it to stay together and be tied together, because you got to be able to tie the two pieces together, melt it all together, that's the whole point of welding, then you need to really consider practicing so that you can practice tying in two pieces of welding. Once you've laid a bunch of beads down, then get you some other pieces, lay them side by side, lay one over this way, lay them like this, just whatever you can do, and practice working them in there and tying them in. You got to watch that arc and make sure it's going to both pieces at the same time so that you're not putting all the weld. You can do that. You can weld go all the way down down two pieces of steel that are stuck together. You can weld the entire length and then pull them apart because all the welds stuck to one side. So that has nothing to do with this welder. That's just a general tip, because anybody's looking for a welder like this has probably not done a lot of welding. And this is an affordable way to have something in your garage and work and to learn welding and, you know, get you some options. There's some things I'm going to put in here about them. I'm going to try to disclose as much as I can about them, and I'll put a lot of information with links to their sites, and so you can read up on them in the description below. So check in the description. Well, I've gone on enough about this. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye now.